Throughout our journey of the MT Top 40, as we were searching for the best football players in Montana's history, discussing with coaches and players, both past and present, different adjectives would come up when discussing what guys' traits and skills were. You know, the fastest guy on the field, the quickest off the line, the strongest. But the number 5 linebacker on the MT Top 40, there were a couple of traits and adjectives when it came to describing this guy. The toughest and perhaps the baddest ever to step foot on a Montana football field. Number 5 is former CMR linebacker Pat Taylor.
Everything that everybody knows about Pat is true. I mean, he was tough and relentless and nasty, and I mean, he played against you to physically hurt you and to punish you.
If you're going off pure talent, there may not be a better linebacker in Treasure State history than Taylor. As Arnson mentioned, tough, mean, athletic, and flat-out nasty. Right among the state's best. Off-the-field issues, though, would slow his football career. All-state football player for Great Falls CMR. That was back in the early 1980s. The Rustlers were regulars in the Class AA state championship games. CMR actually played for the title in 9 consecutive seasons from 1978 to 1986. Taylor, though, did not play in their win over Helena Capital in the 1982 championship game. In 1981, he was, however, first-team All-Conference, first-team All-State, and you see it right there, the defensive MVP.
But the thing people don't know about Pat is Pat was an incredibly smart football player. I remember games standing on the sideline and then watching him go through his preparation during the week, and he knew the opponent's offense better than the opponents knew it. We'd go through scout teams. I ran some scout team stuff against him, and we'd come out whatever it was, formation or what, and he could call plays. And that's the thing that I really remember about him, because like I said, I grew up just down the street from him, so I knew his personality and what type of person he was. But he was a smart football player, and that's what always really stood out for me. Definitely, you know, I didn't get to watch him play much on film, obviously, other than, you know, from our side of it, but definitely one of the best all-around football player. I think he could have played any position on the football field. He was an incredible athlete and a tremendous football player, obviously.
Well, Pat, he was just a vicious football player. He was a tough guy, and he had the size, 6'3", and he could run and loved to play football, and he could play. He was a tough guy.
Taylor would continue his career at Arizona State, starting at inside linebacker for the Sun Devils in 1984. Off and on starter all over the place on defense, as a matter of fact, leading the team in tackles for loss in 1987, and that actually came on the defensive line. Sun Devils played in 3 bowl games during Taylor's time at ASU, and they beat Michigan in the 1987 Rose Bowl. Trouble continued to follow, though. He was arrested in December 1987, briefly suspended for ASU's Freedom Bowl game against Air Force, but was later reinstated by Coach John Cooper. Taylor did have a couple brief stints in NFL training camps where that nasty attitude and that tough demeanor would follow, but he never did get a chance at playing in a regular season game. However, former teammates know that when ranking linebackers in Montana history, this guy has to be on the list.
I don't know that there's any better. I mean, again, I was a young kid, but over the years I did go back and watch some of that old film and watch him play, and you know, he was definitely, he had it all. He was a big, long frame. He was actually fairly lean back then. He was a big linebacker for back then, but you know, he was a 185, 190-pound kid, but a long frame, very athletic. And like I said, the thing that made him so good was how smart he played and what he did for his teammates around him. So you know, he's, as far as linebacker play on that football field, he's as good as any I'd seen around.
And Great Falls CMR has, of course, seen plenty of great linebackers over the years. Jack Johnson coached a number of them from his time in the green and gold all the way to his retirement. Matter of fact, he can remember comparing Taylor to guys like John Knutson.
Knutson was just physically very talented, too. 6'4". I think it's 4-year starter at Colorado, and I think in high school he played at about 225, 230, and he could run 4.5 every time you clocked him. He could get out and motor. He was a big guy and a great kid, just a super kid. So both bring back a lot of memories.
For sure. Out of all the guys that I had been around and throughout the years, even and now as I've coached, I think Pat's as good or better than any of them.
There you go, one linebacker down, 4 to go, counting them down all the way to number 1 on Friday. The honorable mentions as well. Pat Taylor, Great Falls CMR, kickstarting the list. Tune in Tuesday for number 4. Richie Melby, MTN Sports.